The desolate landscape of Vera Prime was littered with the remnants of a once thriving civilization. Crumbled structures pierced the horizon, their shadows stretching long in the fading light of the planet's twin moons. Among these ruins, the silence was broken only by the occasional, distant echo of artillery fire, a grim reminder that the war raged on. In the heart of this desolation was the ancient city of Nalara, now nothing more than a maze of debris and sorrow. It was here that Ilara, a young Viren with deep purple skin that shimmered in the moonlight, and luminescent eyes reflecting a universe of loss, sought refuge. Her people had been peaceful scholars, but their knowledge could not save them from the war that had come to their door. Ilara lived in the shadow of the great library where she once studied the stars. The walls, lined with the charred remnants of books and ancient texts, whispered tales of a time before the skies were filled with the smoke of burning cities. She moved through these corridors like a specter, a living memory of the world that was. Her kind was not built for war. The Varens had been a gentle species, with abilities rooted in the mind, telepathy, prescience, and astral projection. These gifts, revered within the academic sanctuaries, became their downfall as the interstellar conflict spread to their planet. The Varens' pacifism was no match for the relentless onslaught of the Galactic Coalition's enemies, who saw their abilities as a threat that needed to be extinguished. Ilara was now the final ember of a dying flame. Her family, her friends, her mentors, gone. She survived by the slimmest of margins, evading capture through her prescient glimpses of the future, a future that grew darker with each passing day. It was on a day like any other, as Ilara scoured the ruins for food and water, that she felt a new presence, a disturbance that her instincts screamed to avoid. But this presence was different. It was not of Varen or Coalition descent. Curiosity overcame her caution, and she found herself drawn to the source, navigating the labyrinthine remains of Nalara with a mix of fear and wonder. Hidden in a collapsed dwelling near the outskirts of the city, she discovered the intruder. A human, his uniform tattered and stained with the blood of both friend and foe, lay against a broken wall. His breaths were shallow, his face etched with exhaustion and pain. His eyes, a sharp contrast to the dull gray of the rubble, locked onto hers with a wary recognition. They were two souls, cast adrift on the tides of war, each the last of their kind in this forsaken place. For Ilara, the sight of the soldier stirred something within her, a memory of the old alliances, of a time when humans and Varens stood together in the pursuit of knowledge and peace. But that was before the war changed everything, before trust became a luxury no one could afford. In that moment, standing at the precipice of contact, Ilara had a choice. She could retreat back into the shadows, leaving the human to his fate, or she could extend the hand of compassion, risking the fragile sanctuary she had built from the ashes of her world. As the twin moons rose high, bathing the scene in their spectral light, Ilara's decision would set the course for a journey neither she nor the human soldier could have foreseen. A journey that would challenge the very essence of their beings and forge a path toward a future that was anything but certain. Sergeant Jack Mason lay still among the ruins, his breathing shallow and deliberate, to conserve the little energy he had left. His unit had been ambushed during a reconnaissance mission, supposed to be routine until it wasn't. The enemy had come out of nowhere, their weapons blazing trails of destruction through Jack's ranks. He was the only one to make it out, his survival a combination of luck and a relentless refusal to give in. Vera Prime was a hostile world, its beauty a stark contrast to the violence that had enveloped it. Jack, a soldier of the Galactic Coalition, had been trained for conflict in diverse environments, but nothing had prepared him for the isolation that came with being the sole survivor behind enemy lines. Every movement was a calculated risk. Every shadow could conceal an enemy, and every sound could be the precursor to another attack. He had managed to evade capture so far, using the chaotic landscape of the city to his advantage, moving under the cover of darkness, hiding during the day. The ruins of Nalara offered scant protection, but Jack was a man forged in the fires of war. He was resourceful, his instincts honed by countless battles. He scrounged for food and water in the abandoned city, always on the move, always alert. But as the days stretched into nights, the relentless pursuit and the dwindling supplies took their toll. His body was reaching its limit, and he knew it. The alien girl's appearance was as unexpected as it was unsettling. Jack's hand had gone instinctively to his sidearm the moment he sensed her presence. She was unlike any Veyron he'd encountered in the Coalition's briefings. They had been described as a non-combative species, but the war had changed everyone and everything. Her glowing eyes bore into him with an intensity that made him hesitate. Was she a threat or just another survivor? The war had taught Jack to be cautious, to trust no one, but as he lay there, weapon aimed at the girl who looked back at him with equal parts curiosity and caution, he wondered if perhaps there were still remnants of the galaxy that hadn't been corrupted by the endless fighting. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, a precaution against the unknown. Ilara did not move. Her gaze was unwavering, her body still as if she was gauging his intentions. There was a grace about her, a silent strength that spoke of her resilience. She had survived in this place of death, and while Jack's mission had always been clear, survive, gather intel, survive some more, seeing her stirred a different objective in his war-weary soul. The standoff lasted for what felt like an eternity, but eventually the soldier's hand dropped slightly, his grip on the weapon loosening. Jack's voice, rough from disuse, broke the silence. "I'm not your enemy," he said, his words not just for her, but also a reminder to himself. "I'm just trying to get home." Ilara watched the human, her mind racing. The Coalition had once been allies with her people, but alliances meant little when worlds were at stake. Still, there was something in his eyes, a flicker of something she remembered from the stories of old, a glimmer of humanity. In the shattered remnants of Nalara, amongst the ghosts of her past, Ilara made her decision. Her people may have been known for their intellect and not their combat skills, but they were also known for their compassion. This human, this soldier from a distant world, needed help, and for reasons she couldn't fully explain, Ilara felt compelled to offer it. With a cautious grace, she stepped the remnants of Nalara's once magnificent structures, cast elongated shadows that merged with the darkness, creating a tapestry of light and obscurity. In this interplay of visibility and concealment, Ilara moved with an almost ethereal fluidity, guiding Jack through the maze of destruction that was her city. The landscape around them was a monument to desolation, a testament to the war that had left no corner of Vera Prime untouched. Jack, despite his training and hardened exterior, found himself struggling to keep up with Ilara. His body ached from the prolonged strain of survival, and his senses were overwhelmed by the alien environment. He had been trained to rely on his equipment and squad, but now, with neither at his disposal, he was forced to trust in the guidance of a being whose world he had been sent to scout as a potential threat. Ilara was keenly aware of the human's discomfort, her own senses heightened by the necessity of vigilance. She had spent what felt like lifetimes evading the dark forces that sought to extinguish her people. In Jack, she saw not the enemy, but a fellow victim of the cosmic conflict that had ravaged her planet and countless others. They communicated sparingly, conserving energy and reducing the risk of detection. Ilara spoke in hushed tones, her voice a ghostly melody against the cacophony of distant warfare. Jack listened intently, his soldier's mind mapping the path they took, committing to memory the turns, the safe spots, the dangerous open areas that Ilara deftly avoided. As they moved, Ilara shared crucial snippets of information, locations of known enemy patrols, safe passages through the rubble, and where they might find water. She had a mental map of the city etched into her memory, a skill that had kept her alive all this time. Jack was an adept learner, and despite the alien nature of the information, he adapted quickly, his survival instincts kicking in. The night deepened, and the twin moons climbed higher in the sky, their light casting an otherworldly glow on the ruins. In the distance, the intermittent sounds of explosions and gunfire punctuated the silence. They were reminders of the danger they were in, and the unlikely duo pressed on, seeking the relative safety of a hideout Ilara knew well. As they neared their destination, an unexpected sound halted their progress. A faint cry, the sound of someone in distress. Ilara's instincts screamed at her to ignore it, to continue to the safety of the shadows. But the cry persisted, a human sound that Jack couldn't ignore. "Wait," Jack whispered, a hand outstretched to halt Ilara. His eyes searched the darkness, seeking the source of the sound. There, beneath a partially collapsed wall, lay a coalition soldier, his leg trapped under the rubble. Jack's heart raced. The soldier was one of his own, a young private by the look of him, and Jack's duty was clear. But duty was a complex beast on a battlefield, and the implications of helping another human could endanger not just Jack and the private, but also Ilara. Ilara sensed the shift in Jack's resolve. She studied the human, seeing the conflict written across his features. This was more than just a strategic decision. It was a test of their fragile alliance. She could leave Jack to his own kind and disappear into the night, or she could help, reinforcing the fragile bridge between their worlds. The decision was made in silence, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Ilara nodded. With the coalition private now in tow, the dynamics of Ilara and Jack's uneasy alliance faced new pressures. The soldier, whose name was Ryan, looked upon Ilara with a mix of fear and wonder. His injury, while not life-threatening, slowed them considerably, adding a new layer of vulnerability to their precarious situation. Ilara led them to a hidden alcove she had once used as a study nook in her days as a scholar. It was a small space hollowed out beneath the remains of a colossal statue, now half buried in the rubble. The statue, depicting a Veyran thinker from an era long past, offered a silent watch over them. Here, they found a momentary reprieve from the chaos of the outside world. As Jack tended to Ryan's injury, bandaging the wounded leg with strips torn from his uniform, Ilara stood guard. Her senses remained alert, her mind extending outwards to detect the thoughts and movements of their enemies. It was a risky endeavor, as reaching out with her abilities could potentially expose her location. But it was a risk they needed to take for the sake of safety. The alcove, filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent lichen that clung to the walls, provided a soothing ambiance that contrasted starkly with the harsh reality they faced. Ilara observed the humans, noting the gentle yet efficient way Jack cared for his comrade. It reminded her of the Veyran values of community and compassion, values she feared had been lost to the universe at large. As the hours passed, Ryan's condition stabilized and he began to regain his strength. The young private was in awe of the alien world around him, and of Ilara especially. He asked questions, his voice low but filled with a soldier's curiosity. Ilara, who had been reticent at first, slowly opened up, her voice narrating the history of her planet and its people, offering a glimpse into a culture that had valued peace above all else. Jack listened, a sentinel ever watchful, but also a mediator, easing the tension between his fellow soldier and their alien host. He saw in Ilara's recollections a parallel to the stories he'd heard from elders back home. Stories of Earth before it became a founding member of the Galactic Coalition, when it too had been a planet not of warriors, but of thinkers and dreamers. Their discussions, however, were frequently interrupted by the harsh reality of their situation. Ilara, her abilities stretched to their limits, would abruptly silence them, her eyes glazing over as she reached out with her mind to ensure the enemy was not upon them. Each time she did so, the air grew tense until she relaxed, signaling the absence of immediate danger. The camaraderie that developed between the trio was a fragile thing, like the bioluminescent lichen that shone with a tentative light in the darkness. They were individuals from different worlds, brought together by conflict and necessity, but their shared experiences began to forge something stronger. Jack and Ryan, through Ilara's guidance, learned to navigate the alien terrain with greater ease. They adapted to the signals of danger that Ilara provided, learning to trust in her alien senses as much as their human instincts. Ilara, in turn, found a measure of solace in their company. The loneliness that had been her constant companion since the fall of her civilization was eased by the presence of the two soldiers, human though they were. As they prepared to leave the safety of the alcove, moving towards an uncertain future, The alliance between the human soldiers and the Veyran girl solidified. They were no longer just survivors but companions. The ruins of Nalara whispered of a civilization lost to the winds and ravages of war, yet still clinging to hope by the thinnest of threads. As Alara, Jack, and Ryan ventured deeper into the skeletal remains of the city, they encountered not only the dangers of lurking enemy patrols, but also the sheer will to survive that persisted among the remnants of its inhabitants. The city, once a bustling hub of interstellar academia, now lay silent, its many secrets buried beneath layers of rubble and ash. Ilara navigated the trio through back alleys and underground passages known only to her, remnants of a network that had once connected the great minds of her people. During their journey, they stumbled upon other survivors, alien and human alike, each scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. Some were defiant rebels, continuing to fight a battle they knew they couldn't win. Others were simply trying to survive, their eyes hollowed by the loss and the relentless fear of what each new day might bring. One such group was a band of Veyran children, hiding in the remains of what looked like a communal learning center. Their guardian, a weary-eyed female named Vera, regarded the newcomers with a cautious gaze. She was a teacher, now protector. Her life's work transformed from imparting knowledge to shielding the young from the ceaseless conflict. Ilara communicated with Vera in the silent language of their kind, a telepathic exchange that was at once intense and intimate. A shared understanding passed between them, an acknowledgement of the pain and the burden of safeguarding the future. Jack and Ryan watched this silent conversation with a sense of exclusion, but also respect. The bond between the Veyrans was something profound, a connection that went beyond words and into the essence of their being. Through Ilara's brief explanations, the soldiers learned of the Veyran traditions of communal education, of the collective nurturing of the young, a stark contrast to the militant upbringing Jack and Ryan had known. The soldiers offered their rations, and Jack applied his field medical skills to tend to the injuries of the children. Though his knowledge of alien physiology was limited, his efforts were received with silent gratitude. The children, their eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and fear, observed the human soldiers with a cautious fascination. As the group continued their journey, the weight of the war's devastation grew heavier upon them. They encountered scenes of desperation, places where battles had raged, leaving only the wounded and the dead in their wake. Jack and Ilara worked together to navigate these graveyards of conflict, each step forward a defiance of the death that surrounded them. Their path was fraught with peril, but also with moments of unexpected beauty. They came upon a garden, miraculously preserved amidst the destruction. Alien flora, resilient and vibrant, offered a stark reminder that life persisted even in the bleakest of circumstances. Ilara explained that these were memory gardens, cultivated to honor those who had passed, their growth a testament to the enduring spirit of her people. The garden was a place of respite, a natural sanctuary that provided them with a brief reprieve from their harrowing trek. It was here that the bonds between them grew stronger. They shared stories of their worlds, of the dreams they held before the war became the only reality they knew. For Ilara, it was a chance to remember her heritage with pride rather than with every step through the desecrated land of Vera Prime. The pact between Ilara, Jack, and Ryan became something unspoken but undeniably real. The shared dangers and the mutual goal of survival had woven among them a tapestry of trust, each thread strengthened by the trials they faced together. Their journey was not just a passage through physical space, but a voyage across the emotional landscapes of three individuals from worlds apart. In the quiet moments, when the specter of war seemed to grant them a rare pause, the trio found solace in their unlikely camaraderie. They faced skirmishes, swift, brutal encounters with enemy forces that roamed the ruins like specters of doom. In these confrontations, Jack and Ryan fought with a precision honed by their military training, while Ilara, unleashing her innate powers, created diversions and shields of psychic energy. Their tactics were unorthodox, a melding of human technology and Veyran ability, but they were effective. Each battle they survived cemented their bond. They were no longer simply allies, they were comrades, their lives inextricably linked by the shared desire to see another day. Ilara, once isolated in her grief, found strength in her human companions. Jack, battle-hardened and weary, found a renewed sense of purpose in protecting not just a soldier under his command, but a friend from another world. Ryan, the youngest and least experienced, found mentors in both, his courage bolstered by their presence. As they moved through a particularly devastated sector, they came across a makeshift memorial. It was a poignant scene amidst the ruin. Small tokens and trinkets, likely salvaged from the rubble, had been carefully arranged in a silent tribute to the fallen. It was a place where the war's nameless victims were remembered, a sanctum of mourning in the midst of chaos. Ilara paused, her purple skin taking on a somber shade as she added a small, smooth stone to the collection, a Varen symbol of remembrance. Jack and Ryan followed suit, each placing their own symbol among the relics. The act was small, a drop in the ocean of loss that the war represented, but it was a testament to their respect for life and the cost of the war that raged around them. Their respite was brief, however. Intelligence, relayed through a secure channel that Jack had managed to tap into using a salvaged communicator, indicated that a major offensive was brewing. The enemy was mobilizing for a significant strike, and their path would inevitably cross with that of the small group. They had to make a choice, attempt to circumvent the impending battle, or take a stand and possibly change the tide for the coalition forces. Ilara's insights, born of her foresight and intuition, were invaluable. She had seen fragments of what might come to pass, visions of fire and light, of potential paths that led to darkness or hope. Together they weighed the odds, understanding that the choice they made would have repercussions far beyond their own fates. Jack's sense of duty to his coalition oath warred with his protective instinct over Ilara and Ryan. Ilara, who had lost everything to the war, wrestled with the urge to turn away from the conflict and the pull to stand and fight for the possibility of a future where her planet might know peace again. In the end, they decided to intervene, to lend their strength to the coalition's cause, not as soldiers following orders, but as individuals fighting for a chance at a future free from the shadow of war. The decision was made. The day of the offensive arrived with a heavy silence that hung over the ruins of Vera Prime like a shroud. Ilara, Jack, and Ryan stood amidst the rubble, their hearts synchronized with the rhythm of war. Anticipation, fear, determination. They had chosen their path, and now, as the sun rose over the horizon, they prepared to face the consequences of that choice. They had positioned themselves strategically, using the remnants of a collapsed amphitheater as their base. Ilara's telepathic abilities allowed them to stay one step ahead of the enemy, her prescient warnings and psychic disruptions confounding the approaching forces. Jack and Ryan, armed with a hodgepodge of scavenged weaponry and coalition tech, were ready to defend their position with everything they had. The battle, when it came, was a maelstrom of chaos and fire. The enemy, a coalition of rogue species unified only by their opposition to the Galactic Coalition, descended upon the ruins with a fury that seemed to shake the very planet. But amidst the cacophony of war, there was a new sound, a resonant harmony that cut through the discord. It was the sound of unity, of disparate beings fighting as one. Ilara's powers flared, her form surrounded by an ethereal glow as she channeled her energy into protective barriers and mind-clouding illusions. Jack moved with a soldier's grace, his shots precise, his commands clear. Ryan, no longer the green recruit, fought with a courage that belied his youth, his aim steady and his resolve unbreakable. As the battle raged, it became apparent that their actions were not in vain. Coalition forces, emboldened by the unexpected resistance and the strategic advantage it provided, began to push back against the enemy. The tide was turning, and the heart of the fight was three figures standing against the storm. The battle seemed to stretch on for an eternity, but as dusk approached, a quiet began to fall over the land. The enemy, their numbers dwindling and their morale broken by the fierce defense, retreated. The coalition, though weary and battered, had held the line, thanks in no small part to the actions of Jack, Ilara, and Ryan. In the aftermath, as coalition medics and support troops arrived, there was a moment where the future seemed to hang in the balance. Ilara, her energy spent, collapsed into Jack's arms, her consciousness flickering like a star on the verge of going out. Ryan, his armor scorched and dented, stood guard over them both, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of a renewed threat. But the threat did not come. Instead, there was a stillness, a peace that seemed almost alien after the relentless strife. As Ilara's breathing steadied and her eyes opened to meet Jack's, there was an unspoken acknowledgement that they had crossed a threshold. They had faced the darkness together and had found a light that no war could extinguish. The soldiers of the Galactic Coalition regarded Ilara with a newfound respect, the tales of her bravery and power spreading through their ranks. She had become a symbol of hope, not just for Vera Prime, but for the possibility of unity across the galaxy. And as Jack and Ryan stood by her side, it was clear that the bonds they had forged were unbreakable. As they boarded the Coalition ship that would take them to safety, Jack, Ilara, and Ryan looked back at the planet they were leaving behind. The scars of war were deep, but beneath them there was a pulse of life, a whisper of the vibrant world